Of all the adults who are diagnosed with cancer each year, only about 1% have sarcoma. This type of cancer begins in the bones and soft connective tissue. People in Charleston have been learning a lot about this rare cancer, though, because of our police chief, Chief Luther Reynolds. He was recently diagnosed this last year, and unfortunately it led to his leg and part of his hip being amputated. But as you can see, he's fully committed to continuing his active lifestyle in his very demanding job. I'm Dr. Ray Du Bois, the director of the Hollings Cancer Center and host of Hollings Crosstalk. I'm delighted to welcome Chief Reynolds today. So Chief, thanks for coming in today and helping us raise awareness of this cancer. You've been very open about your situation and what you've gone through, and I've heard your testimonial, and it's just quite remarkable, you know, from start to where you're at now, how you were able to navigate that and deal with it. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about your cancer journey and what led you to discover that you actually had cancer in the first place, because that's where, you know, things get started, and every person seems to have a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody, if they're not sure, to go see a doctor, and early detection, I think, is so important. I was blessed to have, I described smart women in my life. I was smart enough to listen to them, because frankly, I wasn't being too smart. I had a back pain. And everybody my age probably has some version of back pain. And for me, when I lift weights and when I ran, there's certain exercises that would kind of trigger a little bit of sciatica pain. And it got to a point, though, where it wasn't going away. It was different than other pain that I'd had in the past. I wasn't really discerning of that. I was just kind of dismissive. And I went out to dinner one night with some people, and I was standing and I couldn't sit. And they said, well, you really don't need to be in pain like that. It doesn't make sense that you would do that. And that was a Wednesday night. And Friday, October 1st, I went to the Spine Institute and had some x-rays and some other diagnosis. And they said, your back's really okay. It's not anything really out of the norm, but you have a mass on your pelvic area. And they identified that only because I went in. And had I not gone in and it had been more progressed, who knows what the outcome would have been. So I'm so grateful that I went in. They did an x-ray, they did an MRI, they did an MRI with contrast, and they did a scout report. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I do now. The radiologist kind of scouted around and discovered this anomaly, this mass, and that was a Friday morning, and on Monday morning I was at MUSC with Dr. Letty, and that's kind of where my journey began.
Yeah. So yeah, he's one of our amazing doctors, Dr. Letty. He is, he looks a little younger than his age, so it takes you a little bit by surprise. And, you know, he is the chairman of the Department of Orthopedics, and he studies sarcoma as his research topic, and he's always been interested in that. So how did y'all develop a plan, or how did that come about where you got all the work up, but then you had to talk with Dr. Letty and try to figure out what to do next?
Yeah, so Dr. Letty's an amazing person. I would say the same for all of MUSC, everybody that I've had contact with. Dr. Letty's he's got a really good bedside manner, just very personal, kind of accessible, very good at asking questions, answering my questions. My wife and I both went in on a Monday morning, and so that Friday, everything was, you know, as far as I knew, I didn't have an issue. And then by Monday, he was able to look at this mass, and he had some hypothesis, but he said, we need to do more tests. So we did a CT scan, I think maybe another MRI, I did blood tests, I did a bone marrow biopsy, a tumor biopsy, eventually over a successive several week period. And he actually made a drawing of this and articulated what he knew. He wasn't going to go beyond what he knew, but he told me what he knew at the time and told me what the additional tests would be. And very early on, he told me that I was going to need surgery to remove this, and that it would be a substantial surgery, but we needed to do other things first.
And I think your surgery was pretty intensive from hearing your testimonial the other night. So Tell us a little bit about recovery and how you're dealing with that.
So Dr. Letty connected with a doctor at the Mayo Clinic, and I never would have been able to make that connection without him. I was very fortunate and very blessed to have. He's so relational and so connected to other hospitals and other doctors, and getting other opinions and just kind of getting ahead of this diagnosis. That led me to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And in January, I got what's called a hemipelvectomy, where they took my leg, which included half my pelvis and half my sacrum. And I was in the hospital for 40 days. During that time, and after Dr. Letty stayed in close contact with me, with the doctor there, and with my follow-up care, I was able to come home, and Dr. Letty agreed to kind of continue to be my primary doctor. And that was a major surgery, but the good news is they got the margins. They were able to get the cancer that was this mass that had grown in my pelvis area, and it was a success. And it's put me on a path where I had hope for survival, which I would not have otherwise had.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it was the right thing to do. This is such a major operation that, you just can't do it at every single hospital in the country. And they have the team and the whole, and Dr. Rose, Pete Rose, the right physician to really attack it and get it done. So I think that was a good decision. And, obviously we want to stay connected with all of our patients and, take you through all the different phases. And that was, one of the earlier phases. I know you're also treated by one of our oncologists, Dr. Daniel Rubin. What's involved there, and how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, Dr. Rubin has been great, and all of the teams talk to each other. So Dr. Rubin talks to Dr. Letty. Dr. Letty still maintained contact with Dr. Rose, and vice versa, and all the labs and all the tests, and everybody is very interconnected with my case. Dr. Rubin is the oncologist here. He's also been in touch with the oncologist at the Mayo Clinic, who, my case is so rare. Most people have never even heard of the type of sarcoma that I have. And so the person in the Mayo Clinic, I was her third case, and she's since had a fourth case. So Dr. Rubin has been able to consult with somebody who has a little bit of experience with a specific case, and talk about the pathology and talk about the treatment methods. And for me, the different cocktails. The first cocktail I got in November and December was not effective. They adjusted it, and the cocktail that they've been giving me is working. And so Dr. Rubin is the lead here in consulting with all the people in my sphere of diagnosis, and he's the one that actually defines the final decision and the plan to implement chemo, how frequent to do it, what type of a cocktail to give me, to monitor me, to check in with me each time I go in the hospital. I go in every 3 weeks for inpatient treatment. I'm usually in for 3 or 4 days. And he actually writes the script, and he talks to, if he's not the doctor in the hospital, he works with the other doctors and the nurses in the hospital. And he's been a great communicator. And really, when you have something so rare as mine, there's some healthy debate. There's good discussion. There's a lot of questions that we have. And my wife's like an advocator for me, and everybody knows who she is. But everybody's so respectful. And Dr. Rubin, in particular, with the oncology team, has been really helpful in researching and talking to the pathology folks and interpreting their opinions and their results here, as well as the results up at the Mayo Clinic, and coming up with the best possible treatments for me.
Yeah, more opinions are better than one, and I think everybody needs to put their heads together and figure out what is the best way to go. I've got a video here that to show. It's on this iPhone. I'm going to hand it to you. I hear you're doing these rehab gym exercises, one-legged burpees.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I don't even think I can do a two-legged burpee. So what allows you to push so hard in your rehab?
I've always been active. I think part of my success, if I have any, is persistence and commitment to, immediately getting off the drugs after I got out of the hospital. That was one of our goals. Mm-hmm. Dr. Letty told me early on, even though this is going to be painful and invasive and a big surgery, you have to get off of the narcotics and things like that within 6 weeks, I think was his goal. And we did that. And you have to be active. Even before I left the hospital, there was in hospital PT. When I got home, there was some occupational therapy and PT at home. And then there was other PT at the gym, and then getting to the gym by myself. And for me, my faith is central to my success and my family and other support, but a big part of it is physical activities. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thankful that everybody's seen me doing my one-legged burpees.
Well, I think it's inspiring for other patients who, are trying to get through this kind of rehab, and to see somebody who's putting in all that effort. It really
It's so
helps.
important to be active and to push yourself. And I'm excited about, God willing, getting beyond chemo and just being able to do even more. But I'll tell you, there's others who have been through this, who are excelling, that are doing exceptionally well. It's not easy, but nothing in life really good is easy, right? I mean, I've had a lot of challenges in my life, and I'm okay with this, and I'm thankful to have the care and support that we have here. And so physically, I've done marathons and all those things, and now I have to figure out how to do it with one leg. Before I did it with two, now I got what does that look like? I get to redefine that, and I'm okay with that. I enjoy being in the gym, and it always helps me to be physically active.
Yeah, I understand you've gotten your vehicle refitted so that you can get around, and also you've got this very interesting prosthetic. So, can you tell us a little bit about what your goals are from here on out?
Sure. I was told by others who've been in a similar situation, I've been blessed to have some other people that I could contact, that there's nothing that I won't be able to do that I did before. I may be a little bit slower at times, may get a little frustrated at times, but eventually I'll be able to do everything I did even before the surgery. And so part of that is getting my independence back and being able to drive myself around. And so since I now have one leg and it's my left leg, I kind of went through some training and some testing, and I have a left foot pedal, my gas pedal. Oh, wow. So my vehicle has normally, if you got in it and you wanted to drive it, you could drive it just like a normal person. But if I hit a button, it's electronic, then it activates the left foot gas pedal. Wow. And everything else is the same, and I've kind of adjusted, and I actually feel really comfortable. I have a kind of a backup camera that I rely on maybe more than I maybe would have in the past, and but I can drive just like I did before.
That's really impressive. I recently went on a trip to Scotland and had to drive on the other side of the road, and I almost crashed several times. So that's a remarkable adaptation. Maybe you could tell us, and some of the people listening, what keeps you motivated when the going gets a little tougher? And you've been through a lot, and I know there have probably been some roller coaster ride coming through this.
Yeah, it's been very challenging. And I would be lying if I said anything otherwise. Part of it is just taking one day at a time, one challenge at a time. The chemo has been really challenging at times, the physical challenges. And I think my faith has been a big part of what's carried me through this. Prayer from other people, support from other people, having a great support mechanism here at MUSC with all the different teams talking to each other and advocating for me and helping me with decisions. I think it's a combination of all those things. But I'll tell you, just each day, doing my best, realizing it's not easy, and just kind of grinding it out. And I've done that in a lot of other areas of my life and other things, and certainly nothing like cancer. Unless you've had cancer and you've been in this position, you would never know what it's like. I certainly never knew. But I was blessed. My mom died when I was younger of cancer, when I was 13. Ironically, different type of cancer. And she always had a great attitude, had a great faith, and did the most she could with what she had. And I know she's watching me right now, and I just got to do the most I can with what I have. And I'm so fortunate to have good support, and just one day at a time, just kind of making the most. And it's going to sound weird, but I enjoy this season of my life. I'm thankful that I'm surviving. Mm-hmm. I'm thankful that I have my wife, and I think in some ways it's pushing us together more closely. And I'm growing as a person. I'm a better person because of all this.
Well, Chief, you've described this journey as a love story, which some of our cancer patients don't look at it that way. And after all you've gone through, so why do you call it that? And what is your thinking on that?
That's a great question, and that is how I describe it. There's a couple different reasons for that. One, the amount of support I've gotten from others, the prayers, the cards, the encouragement. I've gotten hundreds of letters and cards, many of those from people that I never even met before, people from throughout the city, the mayor, the council, our residents, people in the faith community, our troops in our department, our command, people from Maryland where I used to live. I mean, I just have heard from so many people, and many of those people I've never even met before that I hear from. So that support and encouragement has been so powerful. And then the other thing that I talk a lot about, and maybe we're going to get to this, but I talk about my gratitude, and then I talk about the heroes behind the scenes. And there's people that have come alongside me. Many of the teams that you have in your division and Holland's Cancer Center, I call it a team of teams. There's a lot of different teams that are behind the scenes that are working in support of me. So I just feel like there's a lot of people that care about me, that have been really kind to me, and that have been supportive of me, and that appreciate me and respect me and my family and this journey that we're going through. And I literally, it is like a love story. I've never felt so much support and encouragement and so many prayers that have lifted me up in this entire journey, even at the most difficult points in all of this. I've always had somebody, my wife, the care team, and others that have been with me.
Yeah, and I think that is key, to have a supporting environment. And you've had amazing support. Some of our patients don't enjoy, that kind of support. What's your advice to people to try to position themselves into a more supporting environment?
I tell you, I couldn't do this without the help of others. And for those people that maybe don't have neighbors, or they're not a part of a faith community, or maybe they're not working, or maybe they're just by themselves, I would just encourage them to reach out. There's a lot of different support networks. There's mentoring groups. There's specific to sarcoma. I know there's different groups of people that have been affected by sarcoma here at MUSC. There's these different groups to get connected. I would encourage anybody to really consciously attach themselves to others that can help them and lift them up. There's days when I can barely even just move, and I have to rely on other people to help in terms of feeding me and making sure that I've got my medications, and making sure that I'm doing my doctor's appointments and all those types of things. You need help. You can't do it by yourself. Mm-hmm. So I would just encourage, there's people in that, there's different churches have cancer awareness movements, and people that kind of cancer ministries that are there designed to reach out to others that maybe don't have that type of support.
Yeah, that's really good advice, to develop that network that you can depend on. Well, I know you're still doing your job as police chief, so that's got to have some challenging moments. And why is that important to you, and how are you managing that? Because the Supreme Court says something, and all of a sudden, everything goes crazy. And you never know when those things are going to happen.
Yeah, policing is a very challenging time in our profession, in our city, in our nation. And we have to be available all the time, just like in your profession. We don't stop at night or on the weekends. And I love what I do. I feel called and skilled and connected to continue to do this job. As a chief in particular, I don't need to go run down bad guys, as much as maybe I did when I was younger. But the city, I think, in our profession needs thoughtful, skilled leaders that are good decision makers, that are connected to the community and relational. And so I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like actually policing today is more relevant, more important, more impactful, more timely to be able to solve problems and help people. We've talked a little bit about the gun violence problem and the partnership we have with MUSC and just the potential to save lives and to help people. And so I really believe, even now more than ever, that I have something to contribute and to have a purpose, to be able to be connected to something so meaningful. The men and women in our organization, the men and women in our city, our mayor, to me it's highly motivating and rewarding.
Yeah, it's challenging, but it is rewarding. So what would you say was your toughest time through all this so far?
Wow. The fear of the unknown is a big challenge. To some degree, I feel like I've had control in my life in a lot of areas and a lot of things. I have no control over cancer. And in particular, when you add on that sarcoma, which is a fairly rare, very lethal type of cancer, and then on top of that, Triton tumor, which is the type of sarcoma that I have, which is just very, very exceptionally rare. It's humbling. It's day to day. I feel great, today, but not every day. I don't always feel great, when I get out of chemo and for a couple of days, I tell people I'm kind of banged up a little bit and I get worn down and tired, and I'm thankful for that because that's what's going to save my life. It's challenging. Day to day, one day at a time.
Despite all you've been through, you've been a true advocate for cancer research, and I really enjoyed your talk at the Swing for the Cure fundraiser for sarcoma the other night. The difficult part for your cancer is it's so rare, and it's so hard to get that federal funding or other agencies to fund the disease because they're all funding lung cancer and colon cancer and all these more common types of cancers. And I think that's one reason why we're not quite as up as to date as we should be on this. And so your help in the fundraising is critical. And I just want you to know that we're very grateful for that because we don't want to leave any cancer behind. We really want them all to be going forward with the best research and the best knowledge that we can get so that we can develop those new treatments. And there's some exciting work going on now trying to understand the molecular signature of these cancers because they're all so different. And there are so many different sarcomas that one treatment doesn't fit all of them. So our hope is that one day we'll be able to get a piece of that tumor, do the molecular signature, give you a prescription, treat it, and have the best result possible. But in the meantime, we really appreciate your support for the research so that we can move this forward.
Yeah, and you would know better than I do, but I just generally what I've learned about sarcoma is that there's about 75 different types, approximately, and if you add them all up, they equal maybe up to 1% of all of cancer.
Right.
And some are more common than others, and some, like mine, are very uncommon. And so, like you said, the more that we learn about that, we know so much about breast cancer and other certain types of cancer that are a lot more prolific and have had such an impact on reducing. That research has helped to reduce and save lives and early detection and have a positive outcome. Similarly, we need to do the same thing with sarcoma. Yeah. So as long as I'm around, and I hope that's a long time, I'll be an advocate and I'll be a partner. And I think it's so important to raise awareness, education, and raise monies for that type of research.
Yeah, it's extremely helpful for us, and it's we really appreciate it. So you've mentioned before some silent heroes in your talks, and what do you mean by silent heroes?
This is probably my favorite part of the whole thing, right? So I'm so grateful. One of my heroes is my wife. She's never left my side. Every time we go to Holland's Cancer Center for my appointments and other things, and then when we go to the Ashley River Tower, the 7th floor is the oncology ward, and everybody on that floor is fighting for their life in some form or fashion. We go there, and my wife tries to make it fun. As weird as that sounds, the 7th floor has got some great views. Mm-hmm. We talk about it being like the honeymoon. We'll bring some snacks and try to make it a positive experience, and we do. And when I go up there, the other heroes that I like to talk about a lot are the nurses, the techs, the doctors, the people that clean the rooms, the people that do the food preparation and the food delivery, the people that I go to beforehand and during for the lab work, just the administrative staff that helps us coordinate these visits and get us in and out. I call them my guardian angels, my heroes. I call them the people that are saving my life, literally. And I love to think about our cops that way. I'm a big, obviously I love my police officers and the men and women that are out there in harm's way every night, while most people are sleeping. If they really do their jobs well, they're helping people, they're solving problems, they're protecting people. But nobody ever knows that because that's just what good cops do. And similarly with this team that you have assembled here, that's what they do. And they have their challenges. They have staffing shortages and just there's all kinds of things that everybody is challenged with in policing and in the medical field and nurses and things like that. And yet you have such a core committed group of people that are so talented, that are so motivated and so good at what they do. And nobody's watching over their shoulder. They're solving problems. They're adjusting my chemo and, coming in when the alarms go off and answering my questions and make sure I'm getting my medications and literally saving my life. And not one single time have I heard anybody complain. Not one single time have I ever not gotten the care that I needed to the level of care that I think I need and deserve. I've had people just come in and talk to me and encourage me and help me in ways that is just heroic, in my opinion. And that's how I describe them, as my guardian angels. And so your team, the people up in the Mayo Clinic, similarly situated, just doing so much good with whatever resources they have. And that level of commitment, that level of care, that concern, that kindness, which you can't teach people how to be kind.
Oh, it's unfortunate.
But you have a team of people that are good at that, and you should be proud of them. I know you are. We've talked about that, and so that's what I would describe that group of people as my guardian angels, and they're amazing.
What are your next steps in treatment? I know you're on chemo now, so you're going to continue with some more cycles of that.
Yeah, we're getting towards the end. I think the chemo has kind of that when I got my surgery, that took care of the main aspect of this. But what happens is there's little microcells that can't even be measured. I don't even know on a PET scan can identify them. They're so small.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And some of those things you just don't know if they're still out there. And in my case, some of those were still out there even after the surgery. Mm-hmm. So this chemo, this cocktail that was developed for me has arrested that, and there's no additional cells, there's no additional growth. There's been a sustained period where things have kind of settled down, and I may have a surgery and then maybe a little bit more chemo, and the goal being that at that point, then I may be done.
Yeah, it's it's been a lot, I know. So one last question, and this is not an easy one, but how has this journey changed you?
Wow. I really believe that it's making me a better person. I have a sister-in-law who is a survivor, and she's been cancer-free for many, many years, but she went through a really, really difficult time. And she's been one of my advisors. I've had some other really good advisors, and she said, Luther, you're going to be a better person. You would never choose this for anybody, for yourself or anybody. But when you're through to the other side, God willing, you're going to appreciate life even more than you did before. And you're going to really have an appreciation for what you have. And I'm already kind of having that. And it's made me, I believe, a better person. It's given me a greater level of humility. It's given me even more energy for my profession. Even though I can't run as fast, maybe I will one day. I have to learn how to use this leg, and so I'm grateful for what I have. It's making me a better person. It's not easy. And one of your questions earlier is for those people that don't have the support. What do you tell them? Anything that I can do to help others, having these conversations, maybe making it a little easier for others to understand. One of the things that when I got my prosthetic, I went to Maryland, where there's a lot of wounded warriors at Walter Reed. Right. That's kind of where this person does most of his work, and I met some of the patients, and they all told me, "Hey, Luther, that's pretty severe what you have. That's very unique. It's very high up." But they said, we can take you to Walter Reed and we can show you, no matter what your injuries are, there's always somebody who has it even more challenging, and yet more optimistic maybe, and more active. And they're running up and down the hallways, racing each other. And there's people that are double amputees, and some have maybe a hip dysarthritic just as high as I do, plus above the knee, and just active and positive and working towards a normal life to the degree that whatever that looks like. So I'm a better person. I might be more able now to help other people, which is what this part of what this is all about, this whole conversation. And what a great position to be able to make a difference somehow and help others. And so I'm still on this journey. I'll always be on this journey, I think, and I'm grateful to be in this position.
Well, it's impressive, and we're so inspired by what you've done, our doctors and the patients and the nurses and everybody. So, Chief Reynolds, thanks again for coming in today and taking time out of your schedule to talk with us and raise awareness about this cancer. I think we're all, like I said, we're all really inspired by your determination that you brought your recovery, and I know just this session will help inspire others to deal with their cancers. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
We appreciate you and your whole team, and I can't say enough of my gratefulness on behalf of me and my family. Our Mayor Tecklenburg, is a huge fan of yours, and Dr. Cole, and just the whole team here at MUSC. And I know he's working hard to build that alliance and that partnership and just serve our city and our low country area as best we can. And you guys are amazing. And I just thank you all.
And thank you for tuning in today. Here at Hollings, we are committed to patient care and research. That means doing research here, running clinical trials, so we can offer patients the latest in treatments. It also means meeting these amazing patients like Chief Reynolds. We're so glad how well he's doing. I hope you'll watch next month when we talk about children's cancer and all the wonderful research here that is happening on the MUSC campus. And be sure to check out Hollings Cancer Center news pages for crosstalk episodes, podcasts, and the latest highlights happening here at Hollings.